Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel and the World Class Championship Wrestling review series. We're in the month of January in 1983. We are on the 22nd of January for that year. And relatively, I wouldn't say fully eventful show, but more so probably than last week. We move kind of into getting closer to Freebird domination a little bit. And certainly the Freebirds and the Von Erichs do take over in 1983. This begins here. The Reunion Arena match between King Kong Bundy and Kevin Von Erich, almost said Kerry, but that was not the case. From the Christmas night area is your first match. So they do kind of reuse some footage, which makes sense. I mean, maybe taking a couple of weeks off at the beginning of the year or something like that is possible. I don't really know. It doesn't seem like something they do in the territories, but maybe. Anyway, power struggle early. Kevin is in blue trunks, which is different for him. He's often in yellow, more predominantly in yellow. Bundy, not willing to take backward step to anybody. There's a power struggle in the early parts of the match, and Bundy wants to be champion again. He is continually promoting the advent of the Devastation Incorporated brand. Just weird to see Bundy with things like a head scissors. I'm so used to his WWF work where you don't see Bundy do holds. What you see is Bundy, brawling and being bear hugs and that sort of thing. Modified hammerlock by Bundy, and certainly using the power early in the match. We move into a bit of a deeper match here, and Bundy does send Kevin to the outside. The arena lit a little differently, Reunion Arena, than their natural television. I noticed that because it's easier to see how close the people are in the Sportatorium, but they're not really that far away in Reunion Arena either. Also, Bundy taking a bump for a drop kick is just surprising to me. Kevin sent out through the middle rope to the floor, not over the top, so therefore not a disqualification. Kevin takes a few minutes to get back his bearings, so to speak. And then we see Kevin using the claw, or trying to use the claw. Bundy blocking the claw. Just amazing to me how, in an earlier time, the block of a submission could take up 60 to 90 seconds. Just, blocking from being put in a submission hold was a legitimate way to kind of navigate through things. Bundy, who, for the record, throws some amazing-looking punches. I mean, he will go straight at you when needed. But Bundy kind of is a guy who you look at and may not look like a heck of a lot, but he certainly has the ability to gain a lot of an advantage. Bundy pulls the referee in front of himself and then throws Kevin over the top rope. Obviously, this gives Kevin the victory by disqualification. Kerry Von Erich up next with an interview. He is barely coherent here as he talks about the Freebirds and how unfair Michael was. Says that he indeed did have a concussion. I don't know how true that is, but it makes sense within the storyline, so it doesn't have to be functional or factual to be useful. He talks about being mad at Terry Gordy and Michael Hayes. Hayes, he says, was never intent on calling the match down the middle or fairly, and obviously, for the sake of the storyline, that's true, but also it's clear to see in the way the story for the match was told. He vows revenge on the Freebirds, and off we go into a Brian Adias versus Terry Gordy match. Gordy, who, again, for 1982 standards, or maybe any time, or 83 standards, or maybe any time, might very well be one of the better big men in the sport, at least through the 80s, and shows it here, carrying young Adias to a very good match. Uses, kind of stalling tactics early. That makes sense. Gordy, in his early 20s here, been wrestling since 14, 15 years old. So he carries himself, even as a 20, 21-year-old man, as a seasoned pro, which I think helps the Freebirds get over in the world-class territory, and probably help them in Georgia to a lesser extent, although working with Ted DiBiase, which is an angle I've seen literally the pile driver on, but want to see more of the angle, but I don't know if it exists anywhere. If you know, please direct me. I'd love to put some Georgia in here too eventually, but we're going to stick with world class for now. Just a lot of stalling in the match as Gordy doesn't really. He doesn't want to do much, but at the same time, he can go when he needs to. Also, him dominating Adias immediately wouldn't have been good for television purposes. Adias still a baby face that they haven't completely squashed yet, so it's essential that he looks strong enough to still be competitive with a guy like Gordy, especially since they are plugging, although I don't know where they go with it, tag matches with Kerry, Von Erich, and Adias as champions. Kerry on the outside near the end of the match, cheering on his friend. Terry choking out Adias and kind of, getting under Kerry's skin. So Kerry and Terry obviously on a collision course. And then we do see Terry Gordy pick up the victory. His victory is also punctuated by the fact that Kerry Von Erich wants to go straight at him. We go to an interview with David Manning. Manning basically says that he noticed a change in Michael Hayes during the day of the championship match a few short weeks ago on Christmas night. He says that Hayes did not want to listen. He also says that he told Hayes to let the two men fight, as this is a championship match and we don't need to interfere unless absolutely necessary to break holds and whatnot. Michael does not listen to this. Obviously, Manning's uncomfortable in the position of almost senior official, for lack of a better term, and kind of talks about how the Freebirds and Von Erichs are on a collision course. Then we see a second King Kong Bundy match. Bundy plugging before the match the advent of Devastation Incorporated and the Boss. We don't know who the Boss is yet, although he claims we do. We transition into a match between the Samoan and King Kong Bundy with about 5 minutes left in the broadcast. And as is to be expected, Bundy gets the victory. Very basic match. They're really pushing Bundy hard here. Also, they mentioned that Bundy will be teaming with Kabuki, so I don't know if Gary Hart has officially left the promotion for a time or what that is, because we do see Arman Hussein in the weeks to come. We do not see Gary Hart for the first part of 1983 on television. Backbreaker by Bundy, and Bundy does manage the big splash and counts the three before the ref does, and then again in a post-match promo plugs Devastation Incorporated. The Boss will be here soon. That's where we close, but until then, continue hanging with us for more world-class review and more great wrestling audio.